This week I've decided to take you on a small detour of the historic walk of Galt, Cambridge. I've been telling you about the famous and wealthy families that have had their names on street signs, buildings and stores. Now I'm going to take you into the area where many of them had their spectacular homes, Dickson Hill. Every town has its mysteries, and in the section of Dickson Hill that we're going to be walking through, today's mystery is more curious than tragic. Starting from the parking lot of the Idea Exchange at 1 North Square, we're going to be walking on Grand Avenue, around Queen Square, over to George Street, cross George Street at the crosswalk and continue down George for about a block and a half to Salisbury Road. This is where the walk is going to begin. We're going to be walking uphill. The name of the Dickson Hill Heritage Area isn't named after the founder of Cambridge, but rather his son, William Dickson Jr., and in a way, his granddaughter, Florence Augusta Dickson. She is our mystery. Florence Dickson was born in either 1846 or 1847, and she, the lucky girl, had it all. She was beautiful, had money, and was from a prominent family. When she was 16 years old, she had danced with the Prince of Wales during his visit to Canada in 1862. This last fact was so prestigious that it was actually mentioned in her obituary in 1924. In 1877, William Dickson Jr. died, and being a bachelor with no children, he left part of his fabulous fortune to his niece. About $50,000, a huge amount of money at the time. Florence wanted to become a property developer, so she made arrangements to buy her uncle's land as well. It was because of her ideas on how this land was going to be developed that Dickson Hill is such a remarkable historic area now. She never hired anyone to build any houses herself, but drew out the plans of the subdivision and then sold off parcels of land to builders. Salisbury Road was originally called Dickson Road as it led up to the land that was owned by William Dickson Sr., where he could overlook the water and all that was happening on the other side of the river. You're going to be passing 3 homes that are typical in the area that we're going to be walking through. 1 worker's cottage and 2 mansions. This house was considered a simple worker's home. It has decorative woodwork, steeped roof pitch, and the house was made from rumbled stone granite. This was a typical design throughout Upper Canada in the 1860s. Up the street on the other side is a beautiful Queen Anne Revival home built for Catherine Moore in 1888. Originally a single home, it was made into a duplex in 1928. At a time when it was difficult for upper-class women to work and maintain their social status, duplexes were a way that a woman could own property and get an income. They would live on one side of the duplex and rent out the other. The house at the top of the hill is a Georgian Revival style home built in 1928. It was built for D. Walton McCormick, who was the owner of the Riverside Silk Mill, which is now the Waterloo School of Architecture. It's with these 3 homes that you'll understand the diversity of Dickson Hill. No one builder constructed the houses of Dickson Hill, but an army of them over an extended period of time. We're going to be walking down Byng Avenue to 16 Byng Avenue. This is the house that William Dickson Jr. built and then was bought by Florence Dickson. This is where Florence Dickson lived on and off until she died. The house name is Kirkmichael, was built in 1832 in the Regency style, but was never meant to be the main house. This was built as the lodgekeeper's house with plans to build a vast estate behind it, but the estate was never built. Considering that this house is almost 200 years old, it looks surprisingly modern. There have been some modern tweaks done to it, but all in all it's in its original form. Now along with this house, Florence also had an apartment in Toronto and homes in Ottawa and St. Catharines. I'll be getting back to talking about Kirkmichael a little later. Byng Avenue is a dead end, but you can walk down Byng and come to the trail that leads to St. Andrew's Park and a rather unique garden structure. This park was the original spot of the church and graveyard of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, built in 1833. The church was demolished in 1889, and in 1907 the pergola was built by the Waterloo chapter of the Imperial Order of Daughters of the Empire. The gravestones commemorate some of the earliest settlers of Galt, the 2007 who died between 1835 and 1873. The inscriptions are difficult to read, but still poignant in many cases. Coming out of the park to the road, turn to your right and walk down the street until you come to the corner of Lansdowne and Salisbury. You might have noticed that many of the street names here are named after former Governor-Generals of Canada. There's many reasons this area holds its original beauty, and we have to thank Florence Dickson for her original plan. The streets are laid out on a grid pattern. There are alleyways in the back of the homes for horses, later cars, It might have been her insistence that there was a uniform housing setback, meaning all the houses had front yards about the same depth, regardless of the size of the houses. And that was really important because the houses were built bit by bit, decade over decade, as the land was sold to different builders. In the 1880s, this was still bush and forest and was known as Dickson's Bush, but starting in 1885, she had the hardwood trees cut down and then sold the rights to cut the pine forest down in 1887. Lansdowne had the most expensive houses in the municipality in 1899. On that side were houses that were built post-1900. On this side, it was houses that were built pre-1900. Because Florence sold off the lots bit by bit, there's an amazing range of building styles here. Italianate, Queen Anne, Classical, Gothic, and many more styles as tastes and fashion changed through the decades. These houses are fabulous, and many were built for the wealthy, so of course it took a great deal of effort looking after them, and for the most part, if not all, these homes had servants to wash, cook, clean, and take care of the children. There are many gorgeous houses along this street, and a few of them stand out either because of their style, ornamentation, or size. If you love architecture or photography, this is a glorious place to walk through. The street lamps are Edwardian and are so popular that when the city wanted to update them to a modern design, the local residents stormed the City Hall meeting, demanding that they keep the originals. There are several zoning bylaws that have been passed to keep the unique character of this area. No commercial industrial land use, no front yard parking, no traffic lights, and telephone and electrical service posts are only allowed in the back alleyways. Walking to the end of Lansdowne, turn left on Blenheim Road and you'll continue to see some wonderful houses. Continue up Blenheim and turn right on Brant Road North, where you continue to walk through the area of interesting homes. You continue along many of the roads in this area, or from Brant Road North, walk to Wentworth Avenue, and to your left will be Victoria Park with the Victoria Park Tennis Club. The Victoria Park Tennis Club is a non-profit outdoor tennis facility dedicated in increasing participation in and enjoyment of tennis in the community. You might be lucky enough to come across a game of cricket or soccer in the park. Turn on to Aberdeen Road North, cross the Blenheim Road carefully, and you'll be in Trinity Anglican Cemetery, established in 1841, and the Mount View Cemetery. While cemeteries are a place of history, foremost, they are places that should be respected. Mount View Cemetery is an amazing place, but please remember that it is a cemetery that's still in use, and act appropriately. For many, cemeteries are a place of mourning, but also of reflection, meditation, and solace. It's here, at age 77, Florence Dickson's story comes to an end. Fabulously wealthy, she died a poor spinster. What happened to the money? She was so poor that she ended up selling Kirkmichael to her niece, and her niece let her live in it until her death. She never married. She lived life on her own terms and possibly spent a fortune. But on what? Some say that her brothers embezzled her money by giving her bad advice. Who knows? But in the end, she did leave the city of Cambridge with one of the most beautiful and unique residential areas that is now being historically protected. We're going to be walking down Blenheim Road to Queen Square and the sixth and final walk of historic Old Galt. After that, there is so much more to show you. Join me.